Are we live? I think we're live. Hopefully my audio's good. It's always a hassle. Let's see. Come on. Are we live? This is we're live, but it doesn't actually say anything on my page on my thing. Oh. That's not a good sign. Oh, there we go. Alright, how do I sound? I want to try different filters to see what works. Alright, this is without any filters. This is with filters. Or noise suppression on OBS. Okay, that works. What does compressor do? Hello, hello. What does it do? Wait, does that actually make it better? Hold on. Is there like an echo? Perhaps. Maybe. I'm not, it's kind of hard to tell. Okay, I'm gonna leave those two on. Let's try it this stream. All right, what are we doing today? What are we doing today? We're going to be reacting to a few how to logically survive God knows what horrors. Last time I streamed, we watched one of them and then we watched spooky videos because it caught my interest. This one, newest video, how to logically survive a tier 5 desert. I wonder what's the tier 5 desert, or what's we're about to see. Okay, let's see. Okay, worried. At the desert, of course, you're gonna have to be cautious. Okay, I was just checking. One last check.
Despite me being a primarily horror YouTuber, I'm no stranger to videos concerning survival, whether it be the Backrooms, Analog Horror, or even Five Nights at Freddy's. The thing is, these are all fictional topics covering popular horror media. However, in this case, this video would
Well, I wouldn't say the Backrooms is particularly fiction. We don't know if they exist or not.
unfortunately become far too real. This is me, a YouTuber who has never vlogged.
What the? Where are you? Hold on. Bro looks.
Become far too real. This is me.
Bro is in the Libyan desert. What?
Who has never vlogged before, in the middle of nowhere, hundreds of miles away from home in one of the most scarcely populated states, as well as the hottest, most deadly desert in North America. It is safe to say this video didn't quite go as planned. What started out...
If you don't get chased by the Wendigo or like some demon, then it did go as planned, because it could have been worse.
An exploration to an abandoned mine ended in a
so dingy
nightmare and one of the most insane scenarios in my whole career. Welcome.
Get trapped, get trapped.
I'm Mr. Mirage, and this is how I logically survived a tier 5 desert.
Logically or barely survived? Two distinctly different things. Room landscape. Okay, who made this quote?
I'm sure by now you're wondering, how did I get here? And to explain that, we need to go back to early 2024, around February or March, when I would come to be hitting 10,000 subscribers. And I wanted to do something special in order to celebrate. But since it got delayed, it's more of going to be closer to a 50,000 subscriber special.
I see.
I wanted to make this video as a sort of thanks to you guys for all the support you showed me on this channel. It's insane. My problem was I had no idea what I was going to do. and how I would turn it into a good video. I've always been a fan of exploration, so all I needed was a location, and it would come in the form of one of my favorite horror games. One that everything from
What
the sound
horror?
design to the disturbing entities
What
was
is
just
that?
perfection. People who have watched me for a while may have noticed I frequently use the soundtrack in my videos, as well as using the background footage for a few of my How to Logically Survive videos.
What
This
is that?
game is none other than Lost in Vivo.
Oh.
Now, Lost in Vivo, for those unfamiliar, is essentially a horror game where you chase after your missing dog through a sewer system, and eventually you run into way more than what you would expect. As you play through the game, you run through sewer systems, subway stations, trains, and eventually a mine. Now,
Okay,
as
mine.
fun as it would have been to explore a giant sewer system, I had no clue how to find that sort of thing, nor the legality of it, or how safe it would be.
Okay, if homeless people in Las Vegas can do it, you can definitely explore sewer systems.
Or how far away it would be from my location and if I could afford to go there. So I was left with the idea of a mine, which coincidentally, after a little bit of researching the game's soundtracks, I discovered was named after the Horton Mine. The Horton Mine, for those unfamiliar, is an abandoned mine shaft located in a small range of mountains in the middle of the state of Nevada. One that, oddly enough, is a small patch of green surrounded by hundreds of miles of desert. So the question is, what made this mine so special? For me, it was the words of a YouTuber going by the name Exploring Abandoned Mines, who claimed to hear voices over the PA system, as well as random movements of the chains hanging from the ceiling. This was
that random movement from the chains reminds me of Abandoned from Mickey. There's like a line in the story where it's like they were swinging meat hooks when there was no air. That's immediate connection.
More than a little bit suspicious, and I wanted to figure out for myself if this mine was actually abandoned. I have been inside over 100 abandoned mines, but this one was definitely the creepiest. As I ventured hesitantly down the tunnel, it felt more and more wrong. So to me, I couldn't think of a better place to explore for my subscriber special. So after planning a day, recruiting one of my good friends to come with me, and packing a ton of
the most trash my hair has ever been
towards the mine. Little did we know this trip would not be one we would soon forget. In order to get up to the Horton Mine, we would need to drive through multiple intensely hot deserts, including Nevada's Great Basin and the Mojave Desert, which...
Yo, the Mojave Desert Fallout reference? Dude, if you didn't explore, like, Fallout things related to, like, the Mojave Desert, that'd be very disappointing.
Aware, the Mojave Desert is the hottest desert in North America, as well as being home to Death Valley, whose extreme conditions can easily make it a death wish, especially in the summer months.
I don't know, if cannibals can survive in there, then I'm pretty sure you'll do just fine.
Which was conveniently when we decided to go.
Yeah, I don't know why you would go in the summer.
Be fucking hell. From the days frequently passing 100 degrees to the winds blowing on us feeling like a hot AC, not to mention, if we did make it to the mine, there's always the possibility of it collapsing on us. Events like the Nutty Putty Cave incident and many others always sort of...
Oh, that's an awful way to die. What the... How do you fall like that? How? Wait. Nah. This is why you never find me exploring caves. I don't want to die like that.
In the back of our minds. But in the end, it wouldn't matter. But in order to take the minds off the hell we're about to have to go through, we would first visit a bizarre fake grocery store in Las Vegas to see if we could find any cool supplies there.
About a no clip into the fucking
and to be honest, not to my surprise, all we found
Dozito's
was
Moon Ranch. Oh, that's kind of cool.
Passageway leading into the craziest drug tip of an experience. Overall, this place kind of gave me the vibes of LSD Dream Emulator and other liminal games, which for me was extremely fun.
Yeah, you're addicted to liminal spaces.
Now, and why it didn't really make us any progress, it did serve as a sort of cool resting spot before we went into the desert. So after a good night's sleep that night, we pushed forward to the entrance of the Horton Mine. But unfortunately, it wouldn't be long before my inexperience in vlogging would rear its ugly head, and it would come to cost us our entire trip. Promptly after reaching the entrance, I decided to do a pre-mine drone...
Oh wait, what the... That's the mine hole? Bro! How big is this thing?
And due to my stupidity, my drone's autopilot would crash into the side of the mountain. This overall made it very clear that this might not have been a good idea.
You think?
Now, a frequent theme you're going to notice over and over again in this video is I don't know how to vlog. This was my first time attempting a sort of vlogging style video because I'm used to just making these highly edited content. So when it came to vlogging, I had no clue what I was doing, and between wind interference and it now costing me my equipment,
Yeah.
it became clear to me just how unprepared I was.
Okay, it's not that hard to hold a camera or to control a drone. It's not that hard. I've done it before. You just have common sense.
Regardless, it was too late. It had already crashed. So to me, I knew exactly what I had to do. So since there was no way in hell I was
Bro,
moving
what
my
the-
drone up there, I needed to find the safest possible way to get up and down with my drone. For this, I wanted to keep a few things in mind. Firstly, the ground here was extremely unstable, especially on the left side, which meant the only viable option was climbing up the trees on the right side of the entrance.
You're
to have some
tripping.
sort of grip.
Why would you
However,
climb
this
that?
comes with the risk of falling into the mine's entrance since I'm climbing right over it. And if that happened, I likely wouldn't survive. So it's safe to say, while I was doing this is probably one of the most scared I've ever been in my whole life. But after roughly around 30 to 45 minutes of me looking around up there, I managed to find my drone crashed upside down by some rocks, and luckily make it down safe. But afterwards, me and my friend were both just completely done with this situation due to how close I had come to being seriously injured and how close I came to losing my drone. We were just both completely
The
done
drone is not
and ready
worth it.
to get the fuck out of there. Not to mention we were running low on water and it was getting darker by the minute. We ended up being forced to make the difficult decision that we were out of our league and that we'd scrap the video and get the hell out of there.
No
However,
way.
This is a choice we had come to make too late, because now, despite everything, we had hundreds of miles of desert between us and home, and not much for a major city to take refuge in.
No way, you quit the video? Are you serious? That going into this, I did not expect that to happen.
We're going to have to camp nearby, at least for the night. So in the rest of this video,
Yeah,
we're going to be going over what we dealt with,
Camp in a
logical
crackhead
methods
nest.
we used to survive.
Dude, already, your clothes is not it. You need to put on like the Middle Eastern head wraps, the soft clothes. Black shorts is not doing you any favors. But where's your camel pack? That's another thing. Why don't you have one? You figure it'd be easier to just continuously taking sips out of your water bottle, heating it up.
And the logical methods we used to survive.
Campsite arrival. Alright, let's see.
A desert is defined as a landscape where little participation occurs, and consequently, living conditions create unique biomes and ecosystems. Now, one of the biggest threats that you wouldn't normally expect when coming to a desert,
Is a demon.
especially dunes, is that other than the extreme heat, you also have to frequently deal with very, very strong winds, which get faster the later in the day it becomes. Which
Yeah, see, I
brings me
didn't know
to
that.
introduce the tier system mentioned in the title. For those unfamiliar, things as hurricanes and earthquakes can be marked on the Richter scale and the severity index respectively.
Okay.
But harsh environments like this do not seem to possess the same ranking system, at least not that I know of. In my opinion, if there were to be such thing, deserts themselves should be tiered off of their average heat, average rain, top wind speeds, along with proximities to major cities. And when it comes to my current situation, two major
You're
deserts,
cooked.
along with the hottest place on the planet, stand between me and my destination. California's Mojave Desert and Nevada's Great Basin. The Mojave is not only the hottest desert in North America, but Death Valley has been seen to hit record temperatures of 134 degrees Fahrenheit.
Okay.
The Mojave Desert, specifically in June, or the month that we happen to be
Why
in,
did you go in June?
frequents 0 days
Yeah,
of rain
you
along
kinda
with
cooked yourself with that one.
100-degree temperatures, easily making it a Tier 5 desert, with winds easily able to reach 40 miles an hour and especially worsening at night. Not to mention the fact that Nevada isn't really the state that's known for its population density, so we decided we were going to take our chances camping rather than try our luck
Bruh.
in some random small town scattered across the state. Lucky for us,
You're lucky
finding
you didn't get
a
shot by a
decent spot to
hillbilly.
camp was easy, as nearly 90% of the state is uninhabited desert, albeit not the best place for camping in the summer, but not like we had much of a choice.
4 p.m., roughly 4 hours after the night winds arrive. Oh wait, no. What the hell? That's a filter. That's not nighttime.
So say you find yourself like us. Now logically, what would the best game plan be? There are 3 key things that you need to think over when surviving in this environment: your remaining strength, your body temperature, and your stamina.
And
so
your
we're going to keep track of all
No. Where?
the best game plan be. There are 3 key things that you need to think over when surviving in this environment: your remaining strength, your body temperature, and your stamina.
No, you miss supplies. The supplies is literally the only thing. You can have zero any of that. Not zero temperature, because then you'd be dead. But you can have zero stamina and zero strength, but have a lot of supplies and still survive.
So we're going to keep track of ours for reference.
Okay.
Now, the key way for surviving in a place like this is focusing on shielding yourself from the elements, mostly finding shade and finding a way to block the searing wind, along with, of course, any sort of animal or creature that you're going to run into out here. Lucky for us, we had at least came prepared with a basic tent to sleep in for the night. The biggest problem was setting it up in a way that wouldn't blow away with the wind. It was already bad, but overnight it was only going to get worse. For this, we were able to use my car as a temporary advantage, finding the direction of the oncoming wind and parking it as a makeshift windshield. This wouldn't be enough for the whole night, but it would suffice in buying us time to get the tent built. Now, the problem with this, however, is when building a tent and putting effort into something like this, you start to become susceptible to heat exhaustion and worse, heat stroke. This can happen regardless of any amount of shade or water that you have.
Yeah, because you're not drinking water.
When you're working in over 100-degree heat, and you'll find yourself getting tired out way faster. These two ailments can cause you to become dehydrated, fatigued, dizzy, and in extreme cases, confusion, cramps, and even becoming unconscious. And I shouldn't have to tell you why passing out is a death wish out here. It was key that we set up our tent before any of these symptoms happened.
Okay.
And while using your car is always an option, gas is crucial in securing a way out of the desert.
You always buy a gas can.
Day. And when you're miles away from the nearest gas station, it's not very smart to be running the AC all night long. So without this, the car would quickly succumb to the greenhouse effect, and the trapped heat would make the car considerably hotter than the outside. So in this situation, our tent would be our only saving grace.
I decided to stop and take a little breather. It's crazy how far I've come already. You can't even see like my campsite anymore.
Lucky for me, I brought light colored clothing that as
Light colored clothing, sure, buddy.
Reflects light and assists in keeping your body temperature down. But the wind problems were just beginning, and it wasn't long before we were both forced to lay down and drink water, waiting for the daytime heat to die down.
Roughly 2 hours before night. Oh, that's what it said.
Now,
okay,
as the
I'm kind of
night
dumb.
grew closer, we began to wonder if the pikes that came with the tent would be enough to keep the tent from flying away or from collapsing.
No, it's soft dirt and sand. That wouldn't be stable at all. Especially not with the wind.
So we wanted a sort of form of insurance to assure that this would not happen.
What is that flag? What is that flag? I hope it's not the flag I think it is.
Not to mention, it was becoming clear that by the time night hit, we would be the only ones out there, limiting our availability for any sort of help. But this was kind of expected because it takes a special kind of dumbass to summer camp in the Mojave Desert.
Yeah,
but I
like
couldn't have had a bad feeling about this area, especially because every once in a while, cars would randomly show up, drive past us, then disappear off into the dunes. So I wanted to check it out before it got dark. After a few drone scout runs, I would have to bring it back as there was so much sand blowing through the air.
Why there's so many drives?
And I couldn't risk them locking up midair, because then the mountain I climbed earlier would be for nothing. What this would mean is I would need to look for signs of people, and specifically where those cars went, on foot, because I figured it's better now than those people coming up on us and causing trouble in the middle of the night. And honestly, I don't want to meet anyone else that's crazy enough to be camping out
get
here
boot clapped
in the middle
by
of summer.
by
So
a hillbilly.
I went my sort of, as you would say, journey across the dunes, while my friend stayed back at camp and watched our stuff while he rested. But due to lack of proper sand blocking face cover,
I told you, dude, you went in June, but you had until February or March to prepare, and you didn't think of this like Arab clothing that protects you from like the high winds and heat. It protected the U.S. military when they went in. Some of the soldiers wore headscarves, but you didn't think this through.
I had to make do with using my shirt instead. Before I went on the
Lovely.
trip, I had no clue just how necessary these would be. Dunes have a significant...
You think? Necessarily? Oh my god.
stronger wind, causing hot sand to cut through the air. And this can be anywhere from a mild annoyance to a serious problem when trying to get from point A to point B, especially when climbing the top of this massive dune. Typically, when it comes to cultures that live in the desert, sand is blocked via thin scarves and desert goggles,
I told you guys.
neither of which I had brought. After making it to the highest vantage point so I could get a solid view, I could barely even look over the top without being blasted in the eyes with sand. Eventually, all the water that I had brought with me would run out and I'd be forced back to the campsite to get more.
From the mountain as it was getting dark. And the second it got dark, a crazy wind started, as you could probably tell. And we're trying
What is this camera angle? Oh, I can't see
Despite being
diddle.
Slightly cooler and eliminating the need for shade, nights in the desert are uniquely terrifying, and this became
Yeah, 'cause
clear
it gets
as
freezing.
Not long after it got dark, the corner of our tent would rip off its hinges and be flying in the wind, making it painfully obvious that we would need to take more extreme measures to keep our tent in place. Our best solution consisted of first using a rope
Rocks.
to wrap around all sides of the tent evenly, and then pulling it tight and weighing it down with rocks. This made it so the tent had extra support and didn't collapse.
You didn't
Then
hear about
we
this
used heavy
before?
items on the inside, and now that it was night, we had the energy to move nearby rocks along the borders of the tent, and this was finally enough to keep it in place. But this all is going to depend on the durability of the shelter that you have. There are specifically wind-resistant tents that will make this a lot of an easier process, but a majority of the time you're going to need to employ these tactics. There's also the factor that when it comes to areas like the desert, it becomes more alive at night, meaning you have to be more aware
Of
desert
animals trying to
mice,
kill
and
you.
since they're prey, they're predators such as coyotes and rattlesnakes. But regardless, our shelter was finally stable, so we can now focus on getting food. And since we had no stove or cooking grill, we'd be forced to resort to a fire to heat it up.
Oh, that's not that
It
bad.
would be so hard as the desert contains a lot of dry wood and branches. Little did we know we would be running headfirst into the same brick walls before. The wind was too strong, and any fire would be immediately put out before it could get big enough. Our solution to this would oddly enough be very similar to before. We
Just
would
put it
need
behind the
something to
car.
block the wind
Yeah.
so the fire could start
It's
and last
obvious.
long enough to cook our food. As for obvious reasons, warmth wasn't necessary, because the desert remains in high 80s even at night. Now, this took us a while and even more strength and energy to move all the rocks, but finally, after using dry desert shrubs and various wood left around, we would finally get the fire going, only to find out we had no sticks to roast the hot dogs on. And as you could probably guess, we used rocks as a solution to this too.
So we fixed the
Roast sticks, okay.
We have a bigger problem of trying to roast hot dogs without any sort of metal stick. So what we did here is we're just gonna set the bucket and made ourselves a hot dog.
How are you this dumb?
Throughout our lives, hopefully we are taught that this would be a bad idea due to dirt and bacteria
Dirt.
that might be present on said rocks. But with some quick research, harmful bacteria dies at a temperature of 200.
Not all bacteria. Not all bacteria. They're called bacteria called extremophiles. They can survive even more than that.
12 degrees Fahrenheit. A fire burns at over 2,000 degrees, more than enough to clean the rocks completely of bacteria. So after letting the rocks sit in the fire for a few minutes,
What about the inside of the
washing
rock?
dirt and sand off with water,
Sometimes there's
we were able
boreholes.
to regain a lot of energy, and we're now ready to sleep the night off. Also, just a side story, for anyone curious on what happened to those people who drove past us, they came back at around 2 a.m. and started lighting off fireworks. The foreshadowing was crazy. But as annoying as this was, I found it as a sort of justification for me scouting earlier. However, I must have done a bad job because I didn't see anything else.
Dude, you did. I must have done a bad job. You had a drone. You have everything at your disposal, and you don't somehow see a giant, like a car, with people in it, just driving past. You would be the worst lookout in, like, anything. You'd get the kev killed by like the Wendigo.
So them showing up, understandably, caught us both off guard. Now, unfortunately, I did not think to get any footage of this as it was pitch black, so believe what you will. So overall, the trick to surviving the desert when you are brutally unprepared is simply utilizing the environment around you, mostly rocks and dry brush.
That's that's common sense. I was expecting to watch how to survive a desert, not how to survive. Oh, I'm barely clinging onto the cliff type deal.
If you can tolerate the wind, you can get by with just a simple form of shade, even if it is just a simple blanket strung up on sticks or a boulder that you can sit under. Hydration is a necessity, and if we didn't have water, it would have been a completely different story.
That's literally anything. You could have been in the snow.
Helped us manage to get home safely the following day. Now, I know this video was kind of ridiculous, but I wanted to make something special for you guys for 50K, so I hope at least some of you guys enjoyed it. I'll be going back to horror videos right after this one. And for people who have never seen any of my videos before, I do a lot of videos with this similar style editing, mostly on horror content that you can check out on the rest of my channel. But past all that, I can't thank you guys enough for showing me all the support you have on this channel. Back when I started Mr. Mirage, I could have never dreamed that I would have even reached 10K, nonetheless 50K within a year. Like, that's been...
Oh, okay. Who cares? Next one is how to logically survive SCP. What is this? 4 months ago? Actually, no. FNAF or let's see. Let's say FNAF. This is kind of a ridiculous idea. All right.
Someone used one of the suits. We had a spare in the back.
A yellow one.
Someone
We used it.
Now none of them are acting right. Body animatronic has been noticeably moved and would like to remind employees that this costume is not safe to wear under any circumstances.
Okay. I always come back. Oh, I love that sound. The schizophrenic sounds. Jump scare? Yep.
By now, if you're unfamiliar with Five Nights at Freddy's,
You're living under a rock.
You've been living under a rock, as it is one of the oldest and most influential horror phenomena of all time. But what made FNAF such a hit? Was it the signature feeling of powerlessness as you were confined to one room
No, it was Markiplier. We all know this.
and forced to only watch cameras? Or was it the disturbing ambiance that really pulled it all together? Whatever it was, at one point we probably all wondered why anyone would subject themselves to something like this for one night, let alone 5.
They
Well,
didn't.
In this video, I am doing exactly that, throwing myself into the shoes of a FNAF night guard, and not just FNAF 1 and 2, but the first 5 FNAF games entirely.
Oh,
And
wow.
asking myself, what would I do logically to survive 5 Nights at Freddy's?
A gun.
And along the way, rating each of the 5 locations on a scale, telling us on 1 to 10
How cooked you are. Yeah, how
Welcome, I'm Mr. Mirage, and this is a logical approach to 5 Nights at Freddy's.
Okay.
Throughout the entire FNAF franchise, FNAF 1, apart from starting it all, tends to have the most iconic mechanics from all the games. The primal fear of being sandwiched between 2 doors, while horrific sentient animatronics slowly inch towards you, isn't something I've felt
Possessed animatronics. Sorry, I had to do that.
since Charles Entertainment Cheese first burst from the curtains on my 5th birthday. But unlike that day, I can't run
Wait,
and hide
what?
behind sentient animatronics slowly inch towards you, isn't something I've felt since Charles Entertainment Cheese first burst from the
Charles Entertainment Cheese. You mean Chuck E. Cheese? Oh my! Nobody says Charles Entertainment Cheese. For the meme. Also, is that 5 Nights at Chuck E. Cheese's? I think it is.
curtains on my 5th birthday. But unlike that day, I can't run and hide behind multiple game machines.
Ugh.
I'm stuck right here, and all I can do is close the doors at the right time and hope the power doesn't run out. So in order to logically approach this game, we have to find a way to remove the luck factor, because unlike in the game, if you're caught in real life, it's over, meaning there is no room for error. Now, if any of you guys immediately went to either guns or water as a solution, you're the reason your dad left. But in the more serious sense, I won't be using any methods that cause permanent damage to any company property, as it would result in you being terminated and therefore not lasting all 5 nights.
Okay.
Leaving
Oh,
is
okay,
also
interesting.
something I'm not going to mention, as in FNAF lore, the person working at these shifts has a specific
Screwed.
reason,
Yeah.
has the obviously terrible pay, to stay all 5 nights. So in this video, we will be trying to survive the entirety of each game. I will also only be using the knowledge from the games themselves, not the movie, books, or the theorized lore,
But isn't the book part of the lore though?
as a lot of it is headcanon and a lot of lore is unconfirmed. With that
Okay.
in mind, let's get into the first game.
Alright, FNAF 2 right off the bat. An EMP grenade. That would work against it. Would it work against him? Do they run on power, or are they just possessed? You probably try and like lock them the day before, or like in the morning.
One location consists of an office with 2 doors, 2 windows, and each with their corresponding hallway that lead their way into the main party room. The stage houses the 3 main animatronics, along with Foxy off in the side at Pirate Cove, and Golden Freddy being a secret animatronic. There is also, of course, the kitchen and parts and service, but I'm sure you're probably all familiar. In FNAF 1, there are 3 main mechanics: the cameras, the doors, and the power system, each of which, if used incorrectly, will result in your death.
Right.
However, it's the most simple of the 3 games to survive. I think it's important to mention that in the majority of the games, you have to survive from 12 to 6 a.m. for a
Yes.
total of around 8 to 9 minutes, with each hour lasting around 90 seconds each.
Eesh.
Now, for this to fit real life, we have to scale it up to the 6 hours that you spend in the restaurant, assuming things like animatronics move at the same rate that they currently do, but they activate around the same time of night. Now, to test how long the power lasts, if you have both doors shut, I went into the game and closed both doors, leading to about 3.5 hours of power, meaning you would have a decent amount of time. But we wouldn't want to do this, as you would be putting yourself in heavy danger once 3:30 rolls around.
Yep.
And you have to avoid Freddy for 2.5 hours in the dark. So, I have a few strategies in order to get around this. The biggest key to surviving each of the nights is the doors.
You could lock
Which
them.
always struck me as an odd design, as when the power goes out, they are stuck open rather than stuck closed, meaning they use power in order to stay closed. Now, I'm no engineer, but that means some sort of weight or magnetic pulley system is being used to shut the doors. Now, I don't have an exact clue on how this works, so it is largely theoretical, because usually when it comes to power doors, electricity is used to raise them as gravity would naturally pull them down. But this is the opposite, leading me to believe that there is something heavier, either locking the doors when they close,
Which
or
is
being lifted with electricity.
Which is the dumbest design for a door ever. I don't know why anyone would think this. Then again, it's a FNAF 1's a personal hell, so I guess it makes sense.
Regardless of this, the first hour would have to be spent getting as many tools from around the restaurant as you can find, specifically from parts and service, as there are bound to be tons of tools there. You would then have to dismantle the door controls and disconnect whatever system is being used to lift the door. Once this is done on both sides, you can simply turn off the power activated switch so no power is used, shut off your camera system, and wait out the night while gravity keeps the door shut.
Yeah, but then you'd be breaking your own rule again. Oh, you'd be breaking your own rule again by damaging store property. So would that really work?
At the end of the night after 6 a.m., you would simply reattach the mechanism before you leave to avoid being fired. Now, if that method doesn't do it for you,
it's still
I have
tampering.
a few other things
I don't
you
know.
can try. The plot of FNAF 1 is animatronics see humans at night as endoskeletons without their suits. So
Put on a suit?
they will stuff you into one, as is protocol. The only problem is the endoskeletons have tons of mechanical items that would kill a person. And as we see in the second game, a Freddy head is used. So you could use tools from before to clear out a Freddy head to use for emergencies, should things not go as planned. You could also make the office look abandoned by turning off every light, opening both doors, and hiding underneath the desk.
Yeah, that's too risky.
But that would have to be a last resort, as there's a good chance some of them will still see you. Overall, FNAF 1 is very simple if you know what you're getting into, so I'd rate it a 3 on the We're Fucked scale.
Sorry guys, I had to go do something. Yeah, what is this? This is still not FNAF 2. This is FNAF 3.
Compared to FNAF 1, FNAF 2 is a lot more complicated.
You
and with
think?
that, more dangerous. The scenario is simple. You've been hired at the new and improved pizzeria, and this time there are no doors. Instead, a massive hallway and 2 vents surround the player, making the tips from before worth. Another difference is that the entities are better at detecting you. There's no power except in the flashlight given, which is supposed to stun the animatronics, some of them more than others. Rather than having 5 animatronics like before, there are the 4 originals that we're familiar with, along with 4 new toy versions, and with the addition of Balloon Boy and the security puppet.
I hate the
totaling
security
now
puppet.
10 animatronics that we have to deal with. However, it isn't all bad, because 8 of which are satisfied with the solution of just putting on the Freddy mask, which could be worn the entire night if it weren't for Foxy and the puppet. While Foxy simply needs to be deterred via flashlight, the puppet is designed as a sort of security mechanism that is left deactivated as long as the music box plays. The problem, as many people know, is the music box, like many music boxes do, wind down every 20 to 30 seconds and need to be rewound. We can fix this, however, by using a recording device, whether it be a phone or a tape, depending on the technology of the time, to record the audio of a full music box loop, and then playing it over and over in
for like 6 hours.
Security cove while the night plays out. With your device, of course, plugged into the wall so it doesn't run out of battery. This would effectively eliminate the puppet as a threat, leaving just Foxy. Now, while in real life you could definitely use the flashlight and mask simultaneously, I want to stay true to the game, and say you would need to alternate due to maybe the mask being too bulky. Regardless,
or it just smells bad. That could literally be, that could literally be reason. Wasn't that a reason? I remember years ago, like 10 years ago, when FNAF 2 first came out, or like it was getting leaked, there was like a toxicity meter, or like why you couldn't have it on constantly. And that was like the in-game reason for why you can't just camp it. But they took it out, so I guess this is a way.
your flashlight will still run out of battery. We do know, however, the building has no limit to its power, so following the same technique...
Yeah, because it's run on like a nuclear power generator.
You can unscrew a panel or two and remove the vent light and use it to flash Foxy before he kills you. And while this is a bit more dangerous than FNAF 1, it's still not too bad, so I'm going to put it at a 4.
Really? Okay. Sorry, finally FNAF 3. L bro. Right, that's a Freddy Street.
FNAF 3 is going to be the most interesting of the bunch, as there are no doors, no power restrictions, and no Freddy mask. There's only one threat, and that is the existence of Spring Bonnie, or better known as William Afton in the Spring Bonnie costume, Springtrap. Rather than it taking place in a pizzeria, you'll be surviving Fazbear's Fright, which is the death trap of a theme park designed to contain the horrors of the closed restaurants, which wouldn't be too bad, except many of us are familiar they brought a live animatronic.
Yep.
Fazbear's Fright puts you in a long office with a large window in front of you, and a vent entrance on your right. The building is entirely connected via these vent systems, and a single path of hallways that leads throughout the entire building. Not only is Springtrap a smarter animatronic, your ventilation and sound systems frequently break, causing intense hallucinations as your oxygen levels are low. In layman's terms, this place is rickety as hell.
You're basically smelling paint.
Much harder to survive. And the best form of surviving is to, in my opinion, not stay in the office. Because unlike the other games, the one animatronic makes it very simple to avoid him, as if you see him coming towards your office, simply go in the opposite direction, as he doesn't seem to be the quickest.
Would you really want to
use his time?
Okay, but like he might not seem like the quickest. But do you really want to take the chances of him bum rushing you through the vents and then clapping your cheeks? I don't think that's like the smartest ploy.
systems, looping back to the office every now and then when you get the chance. It is important to use the first night where Springtrap doesn't appear in the theme park as a sort of practice to map out your escape routes, as to not get stuck in dead ends, along with playing noises away from your planned path. There is also a good chance Springtrap will be less likely to return to the office if he doesn't think that you're there. Using audio cues to listen for the loud metal clanging that he makes could also help you pinpoint where to go, as well as making loud audio cues in a certain room and then going in the opposite direction. But due to the carefulness required for this one, I would put it at a 6 on the where fuck scale, as the hallucinations could also cause unexpected problems, such as being startled or distracted, and then luring him right to you.
Worst jump scare. I hate those. I hate FNAF 3 jump scare. Nope. Yeah. Five Nights at Freddy's 4. Okay.
Five Nights at
You're
Freddy's
cooked.
4 has similar mechanics to the first game, in the sense that we have 2 doors that we have to deal with, but with the addition of the closet and the toy Freddy's behind you. This game is the most disturbing by far, as the entire game supposedly exists in the head of the crying child, meaning there isn't really a set logic. The strategy for this, however, has to do with staying awake and keeping the doors shut, as that
For
does
6
seem to
hours straight.
deter a majority of the animatronics.
Alright.
So the problem is, how would we guarantee that the doors stay shut?
You
Now,
lock 'em?
The animatronics don't seem to try too hard to break in, as Evan Afton is able to keep them out simply by holding the door shut, and he is a child.
Evan Afton? His name's Evan Afton?
Now, the animatronics don't seem to try too hard to break in, as Evan Afton is
Oh my
able to
God,
keep them
okay,
out
I didn't know
simply by
that.
holding the door shut, and he is a child. The closet door could simply be blocked by closing it and pushing over the nearby dresser so that the door stays shut. And as for the left and right doors, we have a bit more of an issue, as they both open outwards, making it so putting something in front of it isn't a good option. My solution for this would be to move your mattress on the floor behind you and move the now lighter bed frame between both doors. You could then either use the bed sheets or clothes from the dresser to wrap around the knob and tie them both to the bed.
I was about to suggest
the weight
that.
of the door being opened would pull on each other, keeping it closed. Then you would simply just need to use a lamp to deter the mini Freddys, as they obviously hate bright light. Now, part of me wants to do
Is that the Bite of 87?
The Bite of 87, but the solution is just not to have a freaking
Bite of 83
as your brother. But overall, this is a downgrade danger-wise, sharing a 3 with FNAF 1. As although there are much more mechanics, it is much easier to block the doors, as you don't have to take anything apart.
Zombie. Walking corpse moment.
Now, such a location is the first game to have a drastically different style than all the rest. Rather than each night just being slightly harder than the last, every night in Sister Location has a different mechanic that takes place
where you
in
could
a
be
completely
cooked.
different room inside of Circus Baby's Pizza Emporium, a massive underground restaurant mostly navigated via elevators and vent. We start off by shocking a few of the animatronics, followed by being able to go home.
On the second night, however, the controls malfunction and the system needs to restart. When this happens, as you can assume, all hell breaks loose, as you promptly meet Baby and her biddy babs, whatever the fuck that is. During this one, you were prompted to hide under the desk, but similar to some analog horrors, you hide with a flashlight, alerting them to your location, with only a small thin piece of hard plastic between you
Hard
and
plastic
these
or metal?
entities. My trick for this one would be to place your flashlight inside of the desk compartment and hide behind the vents, so that when they go to open the door, you can either run into the vents behind them, or if you're feeling like the Doom guy, you could kick the shit out of these things that can't be more than, what, 2 feet tall?
Okay, 2 feet tall, made of metal. You try kicking a block of metal, and tell me how it feels. Plus, look how many there are.
That can't be more than, what, 2 feet tall? These, in my opinion, seem to be the only animatronic that is safe to attack. Following this, you'll be sent into Ballora Gallery,
Oh no.
in which Ballora relies on purely sound. This one, while horrific, isn't too hard, just similar to in the game, move quietly, and stop when she gets near. But one thing I want to add to improve your chances is rather than aiming the flashlight at the floor, use your flashlight to track Ballora to find the perfect time to move. You can
Yeah,
also
why would you do
distract her by bringing objects to throw away from you, similar to in FNAF 3 with Springtrap. The next animatronic you're going to be coming into contact with will be Funtime Freddy, who responds heavily to audio cues in order to keep him away from you. For this, you could use the puppet strategy from FNAF 2 and play the cues on loop on a recording device, biding your time and being very careful for when you reboot the system. For Funtime Foxy's room...
No. What about Bonnie? What about Bonnie? He can detach. Yeah, he can detach. You still have to deal with him.
And play the cues on loop on a recording device, biding your time and being very careful for when you reboot the system. For Funtime Foxy's room, it relies on vision rather than sound. So in order to survive, the best way is to use the flash one time in order to find the wall on the far side from Foxy's stage. You can then feel your way to the vent without having to worry about running into Foxy accidentally. There are multiple parts and service sections in this game, but most of them are just pressing buttons. So afterwards, there would normally be a scripted death for Foxy, so you can end up in a suit for the next night, in a nearly impossible section to survive with the mini arenas. So the trick would be using the previous strategy in order to not let Foxy catch you, then immediately booking it to the exit before Baby kidnaps you.
Yeah, before
In the
getting
final
dragged.
section, all you have to do is avoid fat fingering the keypad. As for the scooping room and
You're
enter,
dead.
it's obvious if you expect to survive, you're going to have to avoid the scooping room in general. And something tells me this is a difficult task, as Ennard, or in this case, Ballora's exoskeleton, is following you. But Baby states it is afraid of the scooping room, leading me to believe that there is a
Yeah, but would you really
window
trust
to
her?
book it to the FNAF-style office, where since it is your final night, you can just quickly close all the doors and repeat the process from FNAF 1 until it reaches 6, and then leave the restaurant as soon as possible. Sister Location is by far one of the most dangerous of the bunch, scoring a 7 on the Your Fuck scale.
Really?
Overall, surviving
Nah.
Five Freddy's doesn't seem to be as dangerous as, say, certain analog horrors or the Backrooms or
Okay.
CP.
Okay, sure.
It does, however, seem to be a threat to someone who doesn't take matters into their own hands and listens to exactly what the people tell you to do. Now, the methods I talked about today was simply what I would do if I was put in this
You
situation.
would die.
If you have any ideas, feel free to tell me down below.
You would die.
If you guys want to see more of FNAF, there are still 2 more main games I could cover, along with tons upon tons of fan games.
Do the fan
So
games.
if I get
5
enough
minutes of
requests
Warriors.
in the comments, I'll make a part 2. And if you made it this far, consider subscribing. I love bringing you guys the best horror content I can.
Okay. Alright. After this one, we'll see how I feel.
If you have been instructed this training, it means that you will soon be working in close proximity with a creature designated SCP-096.
Oh yes, the shy guy.
096 is a tall humanoid being that a majority of the time will remain docile. However, there is one thing you must remember. You must never, under any circumstances,
View its space. Cognito hazard.
take a look at this image. Does it look familiar? What about this one? If you're
Yes.
paying any attention to the intro, you definitely wouldn't want me to unblur this one. Welcome to the SCP Foundation, known for securing thousands of entities and researching many horrific yet intriguing locations for everyone's viewing pleasure. The SCP Foundation aims to protect the populace from the unnatural, unexplained, and overall unworldly
And the
phenomena,
Xeno!
documenting them all into one database. Okay, for those who don't know, the SCP Foundation has stood the test of time as one of the most disturbing and influential
Oh
horror
god,
systems
I don't
of
like
our
that.
time, creating many abominations that could kill you by purely looking at
But
it.
just
or in
getting
some
clapped,
cases,
not looking at it.
not looking at it. SCPs are of course fictional, but I'd be lying if I never wondered if I could survive if this weren't the case.
You
What
wouldn't.
if I was a D-class dealing with a breach of 1 of 6? Could I outsmart Z-079, or even find a way to kill the hard-to-kill reptile?
Heard
Me
it.
personally, but you could be different. So today, I'm taking a logical approach as to surviving not only a site-wide containment breach, but some of the unspeakable horrors beyond the walls of the facility,
Oh.
while throwing them into this convenient little tier list that I made, ranked from impossible to survive to easy to survive. And as usual, I'm Mr. Mirage, and this is a logical approach to an SCP containment breach.
Alright.
Now, as mentioned in the Backrooms video,
Oh, wait, I'm in
which
this one.
I suppose was kind of foreshadowing at this point, the SCP Foundation data logs are massive, containing thousands of SCPs, so of course there is no way I'll be able to cover them all. But what exactly is an SCP? Well, SCP itself, formerly known as Special Containment Procedure and later rebranded to Secure, Contain, Protect, is the umbrella term for any creature or location that is
And the
unnatural
Xeno.
or unexplained by science. It could be a hateful flesh that has been quarantined in the middle of Russia, or it could be simply a box of tissues that evokes way too much nostalgia for my taste.
What?
Or even an adorable blob of slime
Oh, I
gives
like
you
that.
the unnecessary urge to immediately punt it into the nearest brick.
Why?
Really? Just me, huh? SCP would
It's so
originally
cute,
start out as a
though.
random horror post on 4chan, and after a lot of various relocations, would find its home on Wikidot. This post consisted of a horrific statue-like creature known by 173,
Or the
one that moved at inhuman speeds, able to snap your
Bro
neck
could literally
in a
teleport.
fraction of a second. The only saving grace was the fact that it was unable to move while being watched. This image would turn to become many, leading to the development of games such as one about an infinite stairwell and the more popular The Story of Site-19, one of many locations that the SCP Foundation uses to contain these abominations, keeping them secret from the general public. However, something would go terribly wrong here.
Oh my god.
Every single SCP would come to all escape at once. Now, this nightmare scenario sounds like something impossible to survive, but with the existence of SCP-173's glaring weakness, it gave me an idea that maybe every SCP had a weakness that could be exploited and used to maybe survive this catastrophic event.
Alright. Let's hear
Now,
it.
we are all probably familiar with the story of the SCP Containment Breach. You play as a D-Class inmate, in the middle of servicing SCP-173.
In the middle of servicing 173. No. No, that could be used for bad. Oh my god. That's bad wording right there.
You refuses the commands of the guards outside. This is due to the sentient computer known by 079, gaining control over the door controls of the facility and using it to release every single SCP possible. But anyone who has played the game knows how it ends. In this video, we're doing something different. Rather than being in the perspective of a D-Class, we're looking into the alternate perspective. Site-19, along with D-Class, contains researchers, guards, along with the rare occurrence of higher-ups, such as the O5 Council. Site-19 consists of 3 main zones, being light containment, heavy containment, and the entrance zone, each containing their own threats and/or blockage to the player escaping, with side zones such as the storage level, the research zone, and the maintenance tunnels. Since researchers vary due to the level of clearance, we will be using the assumption that we are a level 3 researcher, which is about in the middle. As usual,
I think we were gonna be
we'll
D-Class.
be the smartest to first figure out the biggest threats when attempting a facility exit amidst a containment breach, starting out with non-SCP threats, primarily the armed guards and the more elite nine-tailed fox. As a researcher, you will be essentially less of a target, along with many of the guards quickly falling to escaping SCPs, and therefore will be most likely to have a shifted focus. But to guarantee safety from the guards, it'd be best to find the nearest guard's corpse and wear their uniform.
No guard is going to be able to wait long enough to tell that you're actually a researcher, especially when creatures like SCP-173 seem to be making quick work of most of the other escaping members in the facility. An escape from Site-19 will rely primarily on the ability to navigate through each of the sections while evading the SCPs that primarily roam each one. Site-19 is documented to hold upwards of 50 SCPs,
Oh, 100.
majority being safe or Euclid, meaning easy to contain or relatively easy to contain. But I'm going to narrow it down to the 5 biggest threats that an escaping researcher is most likely to encounter. SCP-096 is the most simple of these, being as there isn't much more to it other than keeping your eyes off of its face. And if you catch it roaming in the halls, approaching it from behind and placing a bag over its head.
You just tag and bag.
No viewing of its face in the future, and therefore a quick and brutal end. Following 096, we are likely to encounter familiar voices echoing through the halls. Someone obviously needs your help, perhaps even someone you knew. However,
Nah.
this is purely an illusion, one that can
Many
easily end
voices.
in your death.
There's someone there. Yep.
Dealing with SCP-939 isn't as simple as a single entity. They are a pack of dangerous creatures that roam the lower levels of Site-19. Known as the creatures with many voices, they can sound like someone crying for help or screaming in pain, so it is best to not try to assist anybody, as they may very well be one of these creatures waiting around the corner. 939s contain extremely odd biology, having no vital organs and biological means a corpse. Finding a way to kill such creatures would be an incredibly
Burn it.
difficult task.
It's just burning it.
Especially when time is extremely limited. But what most people don't realize is these creatures' sounds can ultimately be used against them, and with maintaining a quiet movement can be used to pinpoint exactly where these creatures are and avoid them entirely. And since these creatures will often ring out vocal lines like a sort of beacon, you will constantly know how to navigate around these creatures and not run right into their jaws. Continuing past these nightmarish imitations, you realize that you have to find a higher ranking keycard to progress forward. You remember a fellow doctor with said clearance was in the process of studying an odd SCP, one that is truly ancient, dating back past medieval Europe.
Whoa,
You
okay.
progress down an elevator, and it's just as you thought. An abandoned level 4 access keycard is on the counter. On your way out, you notice a number on the wall, 049.
Yeah, let's go. Own 49.
Behind you, words echo from the hall. It's hard to make it out, but one line is clear.
I'm gonna clap your cheeks.
I am the cure.
What the fuck is that? I don't like the sound of that.
It's good to-
And will show up when you least expect him to. He is an intelligent human-like being capable of normal speech. You would assume that he is one of the more friendly SCPs, except 049 fully believes that you are infected with a disease
By the
known
plague.
by him as the pestilence, and will attempt to cure you, which, as you can assume, leads to your immediate death. The cause is unknown. We just know it is facilitated by direct skin contact and will promptly lead you to being reanimated into a zombie-like creature.
Okay.
That is a little threat due to its lack of speed. Ironically, 049's touch should be treated as a sort of plague itself. In the presence of 049, armor or thick clothing should be very effective from allowing direct contact. But, as mentioned before, it is extremely elusive, appearing randomly as you would try to escape during the game. A very theoretical approach we could use against 049 is his intelligent, almost obsessive behavior with the pestilence itself. No one truly knows what exactly it is, or how it is contacted. However, it seems 049 only is hostile to those it views as infected and requiring his cure.
Which is
In one of his
everyone.
official voice logs, he states, "My cure is of little use on dead flesh," meaning if there are corpses that he himself has not killed, I am led to believe 049 may view them as a lost cause and therefore leave them be. So acting as though you are no longer alive via causes that isn't his touch by, say, purposely missing a gunshot, then acted as if it was pointed inwards, then not moving until he has passed by, could be a
He would
viable
definitely
strategy
check your body.
getting past 049. If you've made it this far, don't pat yourself on the back quite yet. The worst is yet to come. You make a break for the entrance zone, and along the way you find multiple researchers with the same idea. But before you can say a word, something familiar drops down from the vents.
What is
What?
173?
think?
Oh.
Panic, you jump back,
173.
blink, and just like that, the
You dead.
entire room is cleared. All of the
You get aired
researchers are
out.
dead. Only you and a tall statue-like creature remain in the room.
What the? What is this?
Let's go, dude.
Oh, okay.
Panicked, you run backward and slam the door, separating you from it. But before you can do anything, the floor beneath you turns to an oozing black substance, and you are grabbed and pulled in.
I'm pretty sure the black substance is acidic. I'm not too sure. What is that?
You have just become stuck between SCP-173 and SCP-106. SCP-106 is a grisly-looking old man capable of phasing through walls and ceilings and bringing its prey into his own pocket dimension. SCP-106's pocket dimension gives him complete control. In fact, he is so confident that you won't escape that he doesn't even chase you immediately, giving you time to escape through various corridors, throne rooms, and even this World War I-like trench area with a giant rotting bird creature flying above. That happens to be my favorite entity in this universe. Overall, it'd be difficult for the average person to escape this realm when entered. But if you are able to escape, there is a 9 out of 10 chance that SCP-106 will break off his chase, giving you time to escape. As for SCP-106 himself, I would recommend using his lack of agility to your advantage.
Yeah, you could just
Although
run, but you can
walk
phase through
walls,
walls.
He isn't
Yep.
necessarily fast. He is attracted to sounds of pain, as it can be used to lure him into recontainment in the game. So if you were really cruel, you could always injure guards and or researchers or Class D, then get as far away from them as possible while SCP-106 tortures them in his pocket dimension.
Yep.
But say you should find yourself stuck in his pocket dimension yourself. The biggest threats seem to be the trench bird from before and SCP-106. SCP-106 becomes cocky and will stalk you in his pocket dimension. The trick is to move as fast as possible, making quick yet careful navigations along the paths until you're able to find a way out. The trench bird, however, will force you to look into its eye. If it can see you, which wouldn't be so bad, except looking at this creature will immediately begin to kill you.
No.
So use a piece of clothing or any cloth material as a blindfold, then quickly run your hand against the side of the trench to navigate to the eventual exit. This is effectively the best way of avoiding eye contact, since the bird will crane your neck up towards it when it flies overhead. Other than this, you can only hope you escape SCP-106. Oh, and one more thing, it is rumored on the SCP Wiki that he has a weakness to bright flashes, so potentially a flashlight could also be used to slow him down.
Just keep flashbanging him.
is our final and biggest threat.
A
He is
menace,
seen to appear
bruh.
most often and is responsible for the death of the majority of the guards and researchers around the facility. Now, there are two methods that I envision being effective against SCP-173. One of them is a lot darker than the other. Taking advantage of how easy it is to contain SCP-173 is in part due to its crippling weakness of being unable to move while watched, but you need to be mindful of blinking and lure it towards a room with no vent access that it can be contained inside temporarily. My best guess would be an elevator that you can destroy the controls for, trapping it inside for a period of time, as its main method of traveling is through vent systems and opening doors. However, if this plan fails, there is another method. As you know, SCP runs off of whether someone is looking at them. This is likely unable to tell whether the person that is looking at them is dead or alive. So you could take advantage of a deceased faculty member,
And just
especially a G-class.
rip the
As
islands
these
open.
Dead bodies have no use in blinking. You could then position the body in a way that looks directly at SCP-173, effectively trapping it permanently where it stands. Of course, there are plenty of in-game methods of avoiding these creatures, such as SCP-714 being able to neutralize the Plague Doctor's touch, or SCP-1499 that can be used to disappear from reality temporarily to escape 106, or really any of the SCPs.
Although it makes me curious if 096 would chase you down or just wait for you. Questions for later.
Oh.
Now that you have dealt with 173 and escaped 106's pocket dimension, you will most likely end up in his containment zone, where you will find a level 5 keycard sitting on the desk.
Yippee, level
You can
5.
now quickly progress to the entrance zone conveniently that someone has already disabled the quarantine for. Since you were already in a guard uniform from before, you would definitely have a way higher chance of slipping past the nine-tailed fox, who were in very similar uniforms. Now, a lot of this is hypothetical, so feel free to let me know what your best
Yeah, you don't
strategy
get
to escape
sniped.
Site-19 would be. Since surviving a lot of the entities in SCP Containment Breach range from almost impossible to be careful, surviving Site-19 will be our first in our
Dangerous as fuck
category. Now, outside the facility, you should be home free. However, for the sake of making this video more interesting, let's just say you escaped the facility on May 1st, 2021.
Oof.
Your worries are far from over. Little do you know, on this
When day
the
breaks.
sun would come to undergo a brutal transformation into an Apollyon-class scenario known as one of the many SCP-001's, codename When Day Breaks. Any exposure to sunlight, even for the smallest second, melts your body into a shell of your former self. To make matters worse, the melted individuals remain alive and can combine with other
with the
infected
biomass
individuals to form a giant blob-like mass of melted human flesh, one whose only goal is to expose more humans to sunlight and add to the pile. Now this to me sounds like a horrid mix of the second Maze Runner and Bird Box, and the logical solution to this would be to stay inside and go underground. However, that's too simple of an answer for me. So I wanted to
It's the only
one
answer. Okay.
The site of SCP-087. 087 is a seemingly infinite stairwell housed beneath a school campus, one that is almost impossible to reach the bottom of due to the insane nature, as well as the horrific entity known as SCP-087-1 that we will go more into later. During the original exploration of 087, researchers conducted 4 explorations. Most ended in either the D-Class fleeing back up or in their death by 087-1. However, in the redacted 4th exploration, the team of D-Classes discovered a strange door. Inside was an odd, unexplainable field, with a little girl who had been trapped waiting for a body to return to, which I don't know the full story to it, but all I know is it's some messed up spirit shit. Now, you're probably wondering, why does all this matter to SCP-001?
Because it's underground.
In the case of When Day Breaks, sunlight kills, so being as far away from sunlight as well as SCP-001-A would be ideal. And what better place than a stairwell that infinitely goes deeper and deeper? Now, there is still the problem of sustenance, and this part gets extremely hypothetical, but since Wind is not in these videos, if you remember the door I mentioned before, if you think about it, a unexplained underground field would be the most ideal living environment, one that you could easily begin to grow crops and use it as a sustainable base, one with only minor traces of vengeful spirit girls. But of course, there is still the issue of 087-1, a pale white humanoid entity that sort of resembles the Rake. It is unknown whether it is killable via traditional means, but I know one thing that could. Simply testing your chances against attacking 087-1 rather than running like so many did before could prove easier than attempting to fight the literal sun. So knocking it down a couple flights of stairs or simply pulling it into the direct light of 001 would
just yeet it out there.
an end for 087-1 and make
unless it respawns
way less of a threat. When Day Breaks, while there is a solution to it, is still almost impossible to survive in the long run. So I'll be placing it in the almost impossible category.
Almost.
Followed up by 087 being in the be careful category. And the only reason I did that is because compared to Site-19, 087-1 is pretty easy to deal with, as he's only one entity. Another massive threat
but we don't know if he can respawn.
would be the existence of SCP-610 or the flesh that hates. SCP-610 is an intelligent disease spread via direct contact with an infected individual. The infected will first come down with rashes and cuts that eventually will die, then promptly being reborn as an abomination unlike anything else you have
an abomination of humanity.
They have become part of a hive mind that is 610. Originating in a village in Siberia, the flesh that hates might as well be considered as containment is impossible. The only thing that is preventing it as a world scenario is the fact that quarantining the area as it is and just hoping that it will never spread outside of its bounds.
If I remember correctly, in the Flesh That Hates, let me go back. The whole thing, it started digging tunnels underneath the quarantine zone. I'm not exactly sure what happened after, but it started expanding past the quarantine, I think.
As it is, and just hoping that it will never spread outside of its bounds. But we're going to go over what would happen if SCP-610 decided Siberia was nothing but a small stepping stone on its plan to decimate humanity. Now, I'm going to keep this one relatively brief because I just did a video on how to survive Vita Carnis. If you didn't
It's like the
know,
same
we're
thing.
also beings of flesh. However, this is more of a viral infection. But just to recap some tactics that will work for both, using any sort of fire or heated metal along with a corrosive is very effective against flesh-based creatures. However, there is the factor of it being an infection and the flesh monster simply being a symptom of SCP-610 rather than a cure. To truly beat 610, one must stop the spread of infection to truly survive the Flesh That Hates. Now, as fans of my channel are familiar with, I tend to always recommend hazmat suits or gas masks for infective agents. So today, I'm going a step further. And no, I don't mean wearing medieval armor, although that was still one of my favorite comments to date. The transformation into an abomination is specifically post-mortem, so a preventative measure in the early stages of infection could make all the difference. The symptoms include rashes and itching, then a formation of scar tissue that spreads until the victim dies, followed by this tissue gaining sentience, then mutating rapidly and randomly.
This is like a massive cancer.
Is that heat speeds up the process, which explains why the human immune system fails, as a fever would only exacerbate the symptoms. But cold doesn't deter them entirely, because after all, they do live in Siberia. But with the possibility of modern medicine such as antibiotics, if it is bacterial, or some sort of anti-parasitical agent that could kill the virus before it manages to kill
I don't think it's a virus. It's like some supernatural thing, so I don't think scientific logic really applies here.
There
Fire,
is also the option
a
of
piranha
using
solution.
biological agents such as machinery or armored cars as a layer of protection when fleeing or killing these creatures. But the question stands, where could you go? Well, there is another place that you could live out your life in a scenario
IKEA.
610 or 001.
The Infinite IKEA.
Before we move on to the Infinite IKEA, I wanted to quickly throw SCP-610 onto our tier list. Now, even though I did say a method to survive SCP-610, even I can admit it was a bit of a stretch, but the best possible choice you have. Overall, SCP-610, if they spread across the Earth, would 100% be unable to survive.
Okay, that makes no sense. Come on. I think the sun completely glassing the entire planet is way worse than sentient meat coming to kill you. Hi, Kobe. I was saying.
Argue about when day breaks being possibly more dangerous
It
than
is.
SCP-610. The only reason I rated it like this is because SCP-610 is an infectious disease that spreads quickly and doesn't really have any sort of cure or reversal.
Neither does getting fried by the sun.
I actually needed to at least briefly go over this one because of how closely SCP-3008 resembles the Backrooms. I'm honestly surprised that there is an Infinite IKEA level, but regardless, the Infinite IKEA, while terrifying on its own, is an isolated area that could be used in
A polygon
class scenario. Plus, logically surviving the Infinite IKEA seems to be overall more of a fun concept that I wanted to go over. The Infinite IKEA, for whoever is wondering, is a pocket dimension that one can enter randomly inside of an IKEA. One that, when inside, will go on seemingly forever, with odd day-night cycles that are indicative of the ceiling lights. During the day, you are free to do as you please. During the night, however, the problem
You're gonna
arises
get cheek
with
slapped.
staff, which are
Yeah.
humanoid creatures that appear to be similar to facelings from the Backrooms, not bearing any noticeable facial features, and will swarm you and tear you apart. These staff members, like the store itself, are seemingly infinite in number, as well as similar to 939 being biologically dead, and therefore cannot be killed by any external means.
No.
No.
You can kill them. They will just keep coming.
From wearing the skin of a staff member since they are basically hollow husks, to using furniture like wardrobes to hide inside during the night, and then
Yeah, like Ao
using
Oni.
to gather materials. My personal favorite would have to be using IKEA's garden tools as well as heavy items.
And I don't even think you could use their skin. I don't know if it was canon or not, but there was like a story of the Infinite IKEA where they kept attacking like a settlement inside of it, only for the people to find out it was because there was a chunk of staff meat hidden somewhere in their chest, in their like storage crates. They kept tracking them. So I don't think wearing the staff member's skin would help you in that.
Outside during the night and then using the day to gather materials. My personal favorite would have to be using IKEA's garden tools as well as heavy items to break sections of the floor and making a small underground section to sleep, while rugs are placed above you and even adding a coffee table over it for an extra layer of protection, to make sure that you are completely disguised with all the rest of the decor. As much as I would like to go over how to escape for fun, I feel like that would be redundant at this point, as I've already made an entire video on escaping the backrooms.
Well, no, this is different.
My logical approach to SCP containment breach. I have a feeling I'll be doing more videos like this.
The only way you could escape the Infinite IKEA is if you get lucky and the door just magically opens up in front of you, so you can just dip. Not to mention, like, you probably get murked by like something out there. All right, what do we got next? How many people are watching? 2 concurrent viewers. All right, 2 or 1. Let's see what we got. What is this? Let's see what videos there are.
If you're anything like me,
Unfair. Oh, Trevor Henderson. Okay, here we go.
for a while, there were only a few things on the internet able to creep me out. Mostly analog
I
horror
hate
and
them.
the occasional psychological horror.
Yeah, let's go, Yuri.
That was until Trevor Henderson.
I hate that. Oh, he's using the Silent Hill soundtrack. I forgot the track name. Ugh. Alright, Siren Head, I remember that.
Trevor Henderson is easily one of the most disturbing horror artists on the internet. Half the time, it's hard to tell whether these entities are drawings or whether they really exist in hiding in the darkest corners of our world. Now, being serious, I'm curious to if any of these creatures, if they did exist, if logic could be used to survive every single Trevor Henderson creature based on location, physical characteristics, and the
What the hell?
behind some of these images. And, of course, putting them onto the signature...
Silent Valley? Silent Hill? Silent Hill?
Can I trademark that? Questions for later. Now, this would turn out to be a lot more difficult than I thought, because looking at the list, there
Oh,
are
wow, there's a lot.
canon creatures, and at least 10 of them
The
are
Freddy King.
massive Titanic-sized beings that I don't even know where to start on how to survive. So this
Shoot
is gonna
'em?
be a long video.
Military?
Regardless, well, I'm Mr. Mirage, and this is a logical approach to Trevor Henderson creatures.
Okay.
Now, even if you're completely unfamiliar with Trevor Henderson's creatures as a whole, you probably know Siren Head, because it has become one of his most popular phenomena.
And iconic.
Being the giant siren-like creature that uses its siren noises along with its telephone-like structure in order to lure walkers and hikers. It often is depicted as hiding in dense woods, dark roads, or foggy rural areas. The most popular sound Siren Head makes is that of a broken tornado alarm that went viral a few years back because of its eerie nature. The biggest threat around Siren Head lies in how tall the entity is. If you're unfamiliar, the rule of thumb is the longer the legs, the faster it gets from, hey, look at that weird siren down the street, to, oh shit.
It was right on top of you, yeah.
So it's a very important factor that shouldn't be overlooked. Along with its ability to camouflage physically, like looking like various lampposts and street poles, and verbally, when it uses sirens and calls to lure you. To get an idea of how fast Siren Head's legs can carry it, we should look at the only living creature with legs even close to long enough to match its
A G
stride.
giraffe.
Since giraffes can move about 20 to 40 miles per hour, it is safe to assume that Siren Head can move roughly the same, and the wiki confirms this, which, just in case you're familiar with the limits of the human body, he's gonna catch you. So the only way that I could see being able to survive a creature that big,
A motorcycle.
is actually using his height against him, as he would be unable to access
areas like buildings with small doors.
It'd be like Attack on
So,
Titan.
really, any area inside is an ideal option. It's assumed the flexibility of his arms are very limited because as he may be able to, say, flip cars, there's no way he has the strength to be able to plow through solid concrete buildings.
You don't know
So
that.
that would honestly be your safest bet. Now, if you're wondering, well, what if he attacks you in a field or a rural area? Well, to answer this, I would say it depends on the outdoor area. In a rural setting, Siren Head can easily camouflage, giving you less time to escape. The key would be using logical thinking when hearing a siren. For example, would a tornado siren make sense in the middle of hilly forest, or would a hurricane siren make sense in a landlocked state, or maybe even an air
good
raid
point.
siren in a time of peace? Stuff like that.
Oh, good point. Okay.
Regardless, the next step would be to quickly locate something you can hide under, like a protruding rock, cave, brush, or small tree, and make sure you are not visible from above. This will make it harder for Siren Head to locate you, and depending on your hiding spot, reach you. Before we move forward, I think it's important to go over a few things. Mostly, Siren Head, I think due to its popularity, has one of the most information on it out of any of his other creatures. So once we go deeper and darker into his less known canon creatures, you're going to start to see less and less of that same
information.
Some creatures have full wiki pages on them, others consist of simply the image alone, as the majority of all information stems from the captions Trevor himself posted on his Twitter. For these videos, we will be going off of only the wiki articles, Trevor's tweets, and the visual clues I can deduct from the image itself. Now, with that being said, I apologize if a lot of my logical guesses or assumptions don't quite match the headcanons y'all have about it, because I know a lot of times people will see these images and they'll write their own stories that aren't necessarily canon, and I don't want to ruin that for you guys, but I don't know everyone's story, and I'm not going to go research every single lore and story that fans made about every image. So I'm just going to be using specifically
just use canonical
and on the tweets, and using that to make the best guess I can. Now, Trevor himself stated in a tweet that there are officially 45 confirmed canon creatures. And since I don't have the work ethic of Wendigoon to make a 3-hour video, I'm going to be grouping each creature into 6 classes, with some honorable mentions towards the end, that I still think are cool despite not being on his official canon list. Starting with the class I think poses less of a threat than they might appear. Now, picture walking down the stairs in your house at night, possibly to make sure your doors are locked, or even for just a snack, and then all of a sudden you hear something bumping around. You go to check it out,
just snapping and creaking.
What you were expecting, like a burglar or something, you are met with a horse skull that seems to be impossibly long. So much that you can't even see where it stops.
I would cry.
Obviously, you're going to try to run around your house to get away from it, but no matter what, it always just seems to be right behind you, still never ending. Desperate, you bolt out onto the street only to see this horrific entity is still following you. Only something is wrong, very wrong. Even under the street light, it seems to be without end. You still can't even comprehend what you're looking at, yet it just sits there, almost curious. Suddenly, you're struck
I think it's
by a
harmless.
truck and killed. This entity, despite horrific, is the unexplainable Long Horse, and the first of the Guardian class. Unlike every other creature, the ones in the Guardian class don't aim to harm humans. Most of them are rather protective and will only lash out in defense. Now, I recommend you enjoy this section and take any comfort you possibly can in these
horrific creatures.
It only gets way worse from here. These creatures are so harmless, in fact, that some of them, such as the Watchtower, will even go as far as protecting humans.
No.
I don't know if that's supposed to make me feel safe, but
how wouldn't it?
I still would
You
not
get
like
cheeks
to
clapped
go
like
100 miles of these things. But regardless,
I don't know.
I know there are a lot of people that really like Longhorse, despite it technically being considered a bad omen. That simply is meant to be a warning of something bad to happen in the future.
Yeah, it's warning you.
Still, like I said, doesn't make me feel much better. This class consists of 5 entities total. Big Charlie and Little Nugget are some of the first.
What the hell is a Little Nugget?
Entities. It is assumed that Big Charlie, who is supposedly a mutated cow from a slaughterhouse experiment gone wrong, would only be hostile if attacked, or if you were to say, I don't know, punt Little Nugget. This is just the general rule of thumb when it comes to aggressive animals. If it's near something it's defending, like its child, leave it be. and then it will leave you be. Similarly, the god of chickens is supposed to be a guardian of
The
chickens.
god of
So
chickens.
just don't roam the streets eating chicken or randomly murder a load of chickens, and you should be fine. Now,
No,
this is
that thing
the-
reminds me of the cow demon from The Witcher 3, where it's like if you try to camp a bunch of cows, like a cow demon is gonna come out and like clap your cheeks. Just runs out of nowhere, and if you manage to kill it somehow, another one will just spawn until it kills you.
god of chickens is supposed to be a guardian of
Yeah,
chickens.
yeah. It just I think it's called like the cow guardian or something, or like I forgot what it's called, but it's a giant minotaur.
So just don't roam the streets eating chicken or randomly murder a load of chickens, and you should be fine. Now, there is a creature that I almost can put in this category, but not quite, known as the lamb, because
Ew.
it is supposedly harmless, but it can cause extreme psychic damage and blood clots if you're near
Wait,
it for
what?
long. But Trevor himself stated in a tweet that you can actually just run away from it, as it does take a long time to do anything to you, and it is extremely slow. But since it is supposed to be another relative or offspring, if you will, of Big Charlie, I think it's important to mention that here. These
Okay.
creatures, since they pose virtually no harm, I'm gonna put it at a 1 on the we're fuck scale. I hope y'all found
Well, yeah,
something
they
in
don't
that
kill you.
class, because it's the most tame we're gonna get. It only
Yeah,
goes downhill
figures.
from here. You know, there's gonna be a time eventually where I don't fuck up every other word and have to redo a part a million times. Y'all don't see the behind the scenes shit, but if you did, you'd be horrified.
It's a schizophrenic
Like, it's not
thing.
fun. In order to get a vision on what the stationary class is, let's say you're doing some urban exploring with a bit of friends. You're in this old, abandoned, what must be some sort of daycare.
Why would you be in an abandoned day?
Everything's going fine until you see a room labeled the Smile Room above it. This room is blatantly creepier than the rest and takes a lot of
The
coercion.
proper people?
Still, one of your friends is ushered inside, and suddenly a giant pair of teeth slam down behind him. You are thrown back, not believing what you're seeing. For a second, the room is silent. No screaming, no begging, or pleading. Your friend is just gone.
Is
And
swallowed.
Before you can react, the teeth eject itself from the door, filling the hallway, slothing its way towards the other two of your friends, devouring them whole. You bolt down the hallway, desperate to get the hell away from there, and it follows you everywhere. Downstairs, through
It's like the wall of flesh from
until
Terraria.
Eventually, you lose it. It's quiet again, until eventually you hear the footsteps of your friend coming. Was this all a bad dream? But the figure shambling towards you is no longer your friend. This is the Smile Room, the first example of what I like to call the stationary class. Now, this class is made up mostly of its
Of mimics?
tether to one location, and there is a good chance you will not see this entity outside of that location, whether it be a specific neighborhood, a specific building, or just one general area. Now, I know what you're going to say. I'm going to get a million comments for this, so for the first time, I'm just going to say it in the video. Yes, the most logical way to survive this class would just be
Just
not
stay away.
going there.
Yeah.
I know. But that is assuming that you already knew about the location and that there was an entity there before.
Oh,
you
okay,
opened the
fair.
building.
Fair enough.
Since logically, unless you're a professional cryptid hunter, you won't be seeing a giant sign on the door that says something like, "Warning, creepy ass teeth inside." So for the stationary class, we're using logic to escape rather than to avoid or attack. The Smile Room is stated to
Okay.
have the ability to occupy any closed room or space. So the solution to this would be ideally to get away from
Right.
liminal passageways such as doorways, hallways, stairs, and even windows. Your overall goal for the Smile Room should be to get outside, but since it has the ability to fill
Detach.
windows and doors, you wouldn't want to do that, as it could just grab you as you're walking out the door. The way I think is the best way to avoid this is to
have a
distract it
gun.
by making it into its humanoid form, where it would take too long for it to fill that doorway and you could have time to escape. The best way I think of doing this is by going to a place it cannot reach you. It is able to fill hallways and doorways, but it wouldn't be able to fill an entire huge room. So a gym or a theater,
The wall of
of some
flesh.
sort, would honestly be the best way to do that. Then once it becomes that human form, you take advantage of that time and quickly bolt outside. Now, I believe we would be safe outside only because the teeth are said to belong to a mysterious giant entity on the other side of a sort of wormhole. that is on the brink of death from assumably starvation, so it would be unable to waste energy chasing you down. Okay, so do y'all remember earlier when I said some of these have absolute dick diddly for information on them? Well, the Hokkaido hands are the first, but unfortunately not the last. So I'm going to have to infer that the hands simply are used for grabbing you and pulling you somewhere undesirable.
The Hokkaido hands. Well, it's in Hokkaido.
Sort of loose clothing, so that if and when they somehow manage to grab you, you can simply let them grab your outer layer and then take it off. And then
you make it look so easy.
And you could then get away. Up next, we have the whole house and the whole man.
Ew.
Who honestly needs to be careful before I act up. There appears to be a humanoid creature lurking in a basement.
Oh, it's like the guy from the Spider-Verse.
A broom or another household item that is long like that could easily be jammed into its orifice and used to knock it off its stubby legs, giving you a chance to then escape the house. Our next entity is a creature that appears inside of the houses of a single neighborhood randomly, but it assumably is limited to that one location, similar to the alternates in Mandela catalog being limited to mostly Mandela County. Although, since this thing kind of seems like its biggest weapon is a pair of scissors, you could honestly just do the most American thing and shoot it with a freaking pistol.
Oh, now you want to use guns.
You could always just tell it to not bring scissors to a machete fight and then bring the bigger weapon, which obviously wouldn't be compensating for something. The next.
But then again, now that I think about it, it says it's scissors hand. We don't know how long the scissors can extend for. What if the scissors turn into like a giant broadsword? Then you're really cooked, unless you have a gun.
Next two I'm going to loop together, as one seems to be specific to classrooms and schools, and one seems to be specific to theaters, in which my answer is the same. If you are in either of these places at night, I think you have bigger problems and you deserve to die. And as for the last one, known as the Man in the Red Room, it can manipulate your dreams and coerce you into releasing them from its prison. I think
what does that even mean?
But I hate this thing so much. The thought of a giant stringy thing going through the ceilings in a room lit only by a red dim light is the most horrific thing that I could possibly ever think of. Now, the trick.
Don't worry, buddy. I've had a dream like that. It's horrific. It's not like that. It's all dark. It's a dark room.
This one would just be, don't listen to anything it says, because it is specifically stated that it cannot escape by itself, which is why it needs human interference. I don't know exactly how it escapes or what would happen if it did escape, so if you honestly don't care about that, you could just let it go and then it would probably leave you alone. But at the same time, it's probably better not to release a random Eldritch abomination from its prison on your own accord. I mean, if you want to have that blood in your hands, go ahead. Overall, this class is only slightly more dangerous, but I wouldn't say it's quite as bad as anything else on the list, so I'll give the stationary class a 3.
Nah, bro, that's like a 4.
All the classes mentioned so far, the digital class I think is the most anomalous and confusing. And if that doesn't make sense to you, picture this. You're surfing the web and downloading random games off the internet, when suddenly you notice an unusual file on your desktop, kingbirth.jpg. So, as you should do with random sketch games,
yeah, why would you open it? Okay.
Next day when you're opening up your PC, it is back again, but this time it has become more disturbing, breaking apart and now staring at you. The more you try to delete it, the more disturbing it gets. When searching for help, the only response you get is a single sentence.
The Defeated King
is coming soon. Defeated King, along with Bonesworth and the rest of our digital class, died from or are manifested from technology. The only solution I could possibly make for this one is to, if you see an image on your PC that suggests Defeated King is coming, simply throw every electronic in your house in some sort of pool and then take it to the dump where it'll get broken up, because it seems like you always have a couple days before it kills you, which is more than enough time to destroy every electronic you own. And people always say, oh yeah, what if it doesn't let you destroy it? Like, it always pisses me off in those movies where they're like, oh yeah, we can't burn it, oh my god.
Yeah, says who?
If you're about to get killed by some demonic entity, a volcano should not be off the list. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah,
now,
I agree.
It is unknown
it's always dumb when they don't do that.
Without using any electronics. And for some of us, after a few weeks, it would honestly just be worth taking the chances with Defeated King. Overall,
no, man. Just become like Amish. They don't have technology. They're living a good life.
Kinda reminds me of the intruder from Mandela catalog. As for Bonesworth, he seems like more like a nuisance than an actual threat, as once you summon him by his app, He will roam your
Why would
house
you summon
and do
him?
annoying shit like cut your brakes and knock over your ladder.
Cut your brakes.
Also, he is known to bring insomnia and sickness.
I didn't know Bonesworth was a resident from Detroit.
Doesn't seem like it's necessarily killing you, but it seems like it's also indirectly killing you. The best way to get rid of Bonesworth would be to send a chain email with links to his game in the hopes that he will find a new quote-unquote favorite and move on from you. Our next two beings assumably originate from what looks to be an old-timey movie or Bendy-era cartoon, being the infamous cartoon cat and dog. Now, unlike the previous entities, they are only in the digital class because they closely resemble cartoons. Thus,
Really?
now, the thing about these two things is I almost didn't cover them, but I knew if I didn't, I would get so many people asking where they are, as they're like almost as popular as Siren Head.
Yes.
So basically, the thing about these things, as Trevor himself stated, that if you come into contact with them, you're already dead.
Oh.
So for me to try to logically survive these things would be specifically going against the word of the creator, which I'm not even going to bother doing. And I feel like there's been a lot of times in the past, like with the SCP video and the Flesh That Hates, where I spent a lot of time
Theorizing?
trying to survive something that is unsurvivable.
Yeah.
And I feel like that just wastes everybody's time, and I should just be stamping a 10 on it and moving on. The final creature of this class
Wait, you
is
don't
known as the VHS creature.
Okay, I
Now,
get
this
that, but you
creature
don't tell me why it means death. Why it automatically kills you. I'd like to know.
is known to mostly hunt people in the sewer systems, but it does seem to have the characteristics of 096 that if you view its tape, you die supernaturally. Now, for this one, I honestly think
It's like The
everyone in
Ring.
my generation is safe because
Nobody
I
uses
don't know if I'm
VHS
the
tapes.
only one that's never actually watched an actual tape in my life.
Wait, really?
Nor do I even own a VHS player. It's not that I don't like them. They seem cool. I mean, I love analog horror, but it's just the fact that I would never buy one of these things, nor do I really know where to buy one of these things. So
The
I
Goodwill.
think we'd honestly all be safe unless you're really into that sort of thing, and then just don't watch creepy, decrepit tapes that you find, and you should be safe. But the thing about
when I was growing up, I used to watch a lot of VHS like cartoons, like Teletubbies, Disney movies, all that. I'm only like
this thing is
they're pretty cool,
creature
but
itself
I think I broke one of them because I don't know how tapes work. I thought they were tape, like actual tape, and I was just messing with it.
does not seem to be the humanoid running around in the sewers, as with the VHS entity there are multiple forms, including this weird deer creature out in the forest. So I feel like the entity is the VHS tape itself, but if you put the VHS itself aside for a second, the sewer creature is extremely agile, but stated to run off of animalistic instincts, which leads me to believe it could probably be intimidated with fire, as most animals are afraid of it, and logically a creature that is accustomed to running around in pitch black sewers and has night vision would be extremely sensitive to bright light. So bringing a bright luminous flashlight or something like that
to fry its
into the
eyes.
sewer when you go and explore it, should you really want to just randomly explore sewers one day, would be the best idea on how to survive this thing.
Just common
However,
sense.
there are other forms, like I mentioned earlier, the most intimidating being the passerby at night.
Yeah.
Now, for this one, instead of going over it specifically, I'm just going to encourage you to use the tips from our next section for this one as well. But overall, I give the digital class a solid 8 due to its overall...
That's a huge
maneuverability
jump.
And the fact that it possesses two creatures that I could not for the life of me figure out how to survive.
Okay, that's fair.
So, up until now, the creatures have been mostly tame and situational. Well, at least compared to our next class, known as the giant class, that, to be honest, makes me want to drop to my knees and pray. Because when you see these things, it's not even comprehensible what you could possibly do next. These Titanic
Tactical
science
nuke
beings are
incoming!
grouped many different ways in Trevor Henderson's wiki, but they're mostly referred to as the giants.
Are they
The
like...
majority of all the creatures show relatively the same characteristics with minor differences, such as the Wandering Faith having the ability to hurl people miles into the air with his tentacles. But I'm going to treat
That's literally like the thing from The Mist.
Faith
Am I
having-
wrong? Yeah, no, it totally does. There's a creature from the Mist that looks exactly like that. What would it be called? Sorry guys, I'm back.
ability to hurl people miles into the air with its tentacles. But I'm going to
Also, I
treat
think I think when I tried to like get up, I had to I accidentally killed my own fan. Oh, it's still alive.
them all as they are grouped by Trevor as one entity,
Oh, okay.
as they basically all possess gigantic size, and that's all that really matters. The good news is all these things seem to stay away from largely populated areas to my knowledge, along with them being so incredibly big that we would basically be like ants to them. So the chances of them actually coming to kill us specifically would be low, unless of course they somehow manage to sneak up on you.
Which at that point you deserve
Pretty
it.
unlikely. Now, to me, some of these creatures have a sense of peace to them, though they are terrifying, because I feel like it's best when they're monitored safely from a distance, because
If you get near them.
closer than like 5 miles from these things would be horrific, and I just would recommend you run away. A huge threat when it does come to these would be the earthquakes and possibly even tsunamis that they would create.
Just use an
with their
ATGM.
massive size. So staying away from coasts, along with keeping aware of shaking, and if an earthquake is happening, going outside to avoid being crushed by your own house would low-key be the best option. Overall, these giants could be inescapable if they were aiming to kill you specifically, but unless they have a supernatural reason, you would honestly have to be really unaware or asleep for a long period of time to have them sneak up on you and crush you, or become even close enough to be harmed by these things.
Okay.
So I'll put them on a 3 with the stationary class. Now, it's sort of a
I feel like it would be like a
overall
5.
for these creatures to not be in the dark alone to risk being
That's just
attacked by them.
in
But this
general.
class that I like to call the kidnapper class.
What? Imagine getting kidnapped by this thing. You got Grimace's brother, a giant pig, and what even is that?
On catching you outside at night and killing you or taking you, thus the name. I group these entities by the fact that none of them are seen inside, so it is assumable that once inside your home, they will almost all lose interest and leave. So our goal here is going to be figuring out how to disable or outrun these entities long enough to make it home. Now, there are a lot of entities in these next 2 sections, so I'm going to be going over each one more briefly and more quickly in order to save time.
Okay.
The body of a pig is a horrific creature that appears to charge the camera via walking on its hands because its legs seem to have been dislocated from its body. The trick for this one is to take advantage of the fact that it has no legs and has to drag itself by its arms. You would then have to time your blows so when it reaches out for you with one of its arms and is balancing on the other, you could then use a
Kick it.
food item or any sort of weapon, or just kick it to be honest, to just knock it off its one leg and then render it unconscious on the ground. Now, you could either use this opportunity to either run away,
Finish the
or
job!
you could finish it off.
Yeah.
It's up to you and whether you take pity on this thing. Now, a lot of fans refer to it as a ghost pig, but it is unconfirmed by Trevor, so we're going to go with the fact that it's a physical entity. The next creature likely to attack by walking home is a 4-legged mosquito-like creature known as the Needle. Akin to its name, it can move like a horse and drain a human of blood completely.
Ugh.
Now, the best way to escape this creature would be actually to make it to the nearest tree and then climb up it.
How?
And since this thing does possess a lot of the same attributes
As
that
a
horses do, you
oh.
would actually be able to hide in this tree for as long as you need it, and I doubt it'd be able to climb after you like many of the other ones could. And since it is specifically said to be elusive and trying specifically to avoid attention, you would just want to stay up
Just
there
scream your nuts
until
off.
eventually felt threatened in that area and then left. Now, you're probably wondering,
Charge it or like
what if I
scream at
never
it.
walk home? What if I always drive home? Would I be safe then? No, not really. As Trevor, of course, made terrifying street monsters too. Mr. Mascot is a fucking 15-foot tall mascot costume that apparently has the soul of a serial killer inside of it.
What?
Like, that doesn't sound familiar. I hate this thing so much, it makes me want to scream and cry because I wouldn't know what the hell to do if I saw this thing in the street other than just attempting to run it over in a panic.
Okay, what does
I'd
it look
low-key
like?
Be afraid of it latching onto my car and then pulling me out and eating me the second it got the opportunity. God, this thing's a nightmare. So honestly, the only
What does it look
possibility
like?
I could see is to light this abomination on fire.
Ew, what
using
the
a
hell?
lighter, flamethrower, or any high-grade explosive. Honestly, anything. Just get this thing away from me.
I don't even know what it barely looks like.
My favorite cryptid in this list, known as the God of Roadkill, because in my opinion, this thing's design is by far the most badass looking out of all the other creatures.
Okay.
And since this thing is specified to be a deity, the only way to avoid being killed by this thing would be to drive incredibly slow and avoid hitting it or any sort of roadkill or animal in the street, as then it would cause your car to crash. Now, the bridge worm is, I'm sure, one that everyone has been waiting for, as it is an extremely popular creature.
It's huge.
Is an insanely long worm that hides underneath bridges only to jump out and grab crossers. Now, this one is a tricky one due to the unpredictable nature and how big it is, so my best advice for this one would be just to choose areas that don't have bridges. However, if you're going on a route that requires a bridge, it would be best to go with somebody else, so then you could, how do I say this?
Push them in.
Moving on, our final category is known.
The bridge worm kind of reminds me of, there's like a boss in Silent Hill 3 that's like kind of like that. It opens up its mouth into like reveal its real mouth, and you could kill it. So just assuming, using that logic, it's a demon, so this is a monster. So you could probably kill the bridge worm.
Known by the storm warning entity.
What is that?
Mothman with lightning powers.
Oh, wait, that's
The
cool.
solution would be to wear rubber clothing and avoid metal items to prevent lightning from striking you.
Constantly?
So that's about it. You should be able to make it home and safe from all these entities, except, as you probably guessed, by the name of our final class, the horror is just beginning. And as for the rating, this class does have a lot of curveballs, but they're all kind of avoidable for the most part, so I would give it a 6. Being the final class of Trevor's creatures and containing a majority of them, the Home Invader class,
you're cooked.
Are creatures that mostly will attack you in
the Second Amendment exists for a reason.
Other buildings. We'll start with the ones that exist outside your windows or in the areas immediately outside your home, being the nervous house guest and the peeping Tom.
Ew.
The latter seems to be mostly harmless other than just staring in your window, so closing the curtains would be the easiest move. One could also just open your window to lure it in and then slam the window on its elongated and vulnerable neck. You could then attack it efficiently, as it would be immobile. The former is a massive creature peering over the roof side of a house. It is stated to stalk and can turn invisible to anyone that isn't its victim.
What?
Intense emotional distress and paranoia for all that it is seen by. The only method I could possibly see for beating this thing would be to somehow overcome the paranoia it instills and act aggressive towards it. And by this, I do not mean attack it, because it would most definitely lash out and kill you. Based on just how huge it is. What I mean is making insanely loud noises such as screaming, gunshots, firecrackers, or like a speaker with loud music volume. Anything that would scare it away, even if just temporarily. Next, we're going to be going over the 2 quadrupedal dog-like creatures, being white linen
Quadrupedal?
and anxious dogs.
What are you, British? It's quadrupedal.
White as well. Now, apparently anxious dogs can be nulled into becoming docile via treating them like real dogs, allowing them to let their guard down, so you can either escort it out of your house, or depending on the person, attacking it with a melee weapon, or assumably fire weapon. Now, white linen is a more terrifying but easier creature to survive.
White linen?
It is obviously exposed organs, so any timed blow with something sharp could probably
just shoot it.
Greeting Committee, similar to Peeping Tom, has a very thin, vulnerable neck, so swinging a blunt object at its head would be the smartest thing.
No, it wouldn't. It'd just be cut the neck with a machete or something. But it'd be way harder to hit a moving neck or head like that than trying to go for the root.
Now, the next 2, known as the Fugitive and the Pursuer, are another one that I assume
the hell is that?
Together due to their names obviously being associated with the same thing. And for these ones, I think all you would really need to do is just make sure you do not get in the way of the pursuer finding the fugitive. And make sure that if the fugitive is inside your house, that you get it out as soon as possible, as the pursuer would probably take that as you harboring him and kill you by association. Now, the next 2 I'm going to be looping together, as well, as they are both humanoid creatures that silently navigate your house, being the homebody and the pink man, aka the abandoned baby.
Kill both.
Now,
kill both.
What you know about these things is that they're able to efficiently sneak up on you, which in your house is horrific, and I can assume that the homebody has similar goals to the forgotten baby, which is to break in and kidnap you. Trevor stated in his tier list that I will be discussing in full later that the forgotten baby is one of the most dangerous creatures alongside Cartoon Cat, ones that cannot be survived. The only method I could think of doing is keeping yourself from being snatched by finding places, preferably small ones, since these creatures are both huge, and then locking yourself inside or handcuffing yourself to something, so since they can't steal you, they'll become bored and leave.
So
But
they could
this
eat
is
you.
Going off the assumption that they don't want to kill you,
Yeah.
and if they do, it would just be easy either way, so you might as well do that. I mean, because there's a 50-50 chance here.
Just shoot it. Just go.
That class finished up. That would be the last of the...
I'm pretty sure if you shot like a slug right at his big head, it could probably like scare it away. I don't know. You could just have like a house party of all your redneck friends, and then just be ready to unload on anything that came by.
In Trevor Henderson entities. Now, regardless of me covering a lot of entities, this guy has a ton more art that I haven't gone over. So I have a few honorable mentions that I really like the design of that I would like to state at the end of this video. This creature is known by look all way
Yeah.
before crossing, and it is a uniquely terrifying creature as it is said to just be basically a bunch of floating heads. In my opinion, its eyes would be, even though the most terrifying part, its biggest weakness, as they are so large. So using anything from a BB gun to a bow or a gun could render it completely blind and unable to track you. Next up, the marionette is cool for a number of reasons. Mostly
what the-
how creepy it is that it's just hanging from nothing.
Oh wait, that is pretty cool.
I thought that until I discovered the creature known as the puppeteer, which is another giant bird-like looking creature.
Oh, that's cool,
that,
though.
Based off its name, would be controlling the marionette via strings. And I think that's an incredibly cool design, that it has a mini version of itself that it's manipulating in order to lure people in and then grab them. This one, although it is stated by Trevor to be harmless and just a little mischievous,
Mischievous, huh?
all, and I would just steer clear of Halloween decorations or things that look like Halloween decorations in any month other than October.
True.
Now, our final
Fair
one
enough.
is actually canon, but I wanted to bring these 5 into light because I didn't cover them for the
Good
fact
boy,
that they're
photo
just
booth
so
man.
OP,
The end.
especially the Upside Down Man, and the others just don't have a lot of information to go off of. Now,
Murder
I
it!
mentioned tier list a couple times for this video, and you're probably curious as to what that is. And the tier list is something that I, to be honest, saw at the very end of this script, and there was no way I was going back and doing all my stuff again. So I went off of the list that I mentioned in the beginning, but Trevor did make a tier list on how dangerous his creatures were, and he added a lot of creatures that did contribute that
Whoa.
list.
Too late run.
As it wasn't on, there were some that were on there, and some.
You know what? I might do a video eventually, like going through these and not. I'm not gonna do it logically survive. I'm gonna do how to logically kill these things, because I feel where there's a will, there's a way. And if you're survive, and if you want to actually live, you want to find a way to get rid of these things, or at least get them away from you. There's got to be there's got to be some way to just neutralize them.
Some that he forgot. So since it was just really convoluted,
Unless Trevor Henderson himself says like they're unkillable, then I speculate why, how, and what could you do to at least not kill him, but to get them away from you.
to make the tier list a whole nother video. If you guys are interested in seeing it, let me know in the comments below, and I will make a
You know what?
part
I'll do
of
it.
this video.
Screw
Thank
it.
you guys for seeing
October's
this,
coming up.
and if you enjoyed this video, make sure to drop a subscribe because I.
And with that, we're done with today's stream. I gotta help with things, and I gotta take a bathroom break. I don't want my organs to explode. But yeah, we did good. I got a video idea for October. I don't know if I'll fully go through it, but I'll think of how to do it. I think it'd be fun. I like killing things that aren't unkillable. As I forgot the Kratos quote, but he said something that's like, nothing is ever unkillable. There's always a way. And yeah, I think there's always a way. With that being said, thank you guys thank anyone who came here and dropped by. I appreciate it. Hope you guys share it and subscribe. We're trying to get to 100 soon enough. But yeah, see you guys.